we're gonna have to just do it. It's like ripping off a plaster. You've just got to do it in one go. And that's what we're doing. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing an unhaul because the day of me filming this, I have recently bought quite a few books. Like, we had a bit of a book shopping week where I ended up picking up 10 brand new books. And then I had a bit of a, I don't know what to call it, but madness moment where I went onto World of Books website and ordered another 5. So yeah, basically I've got books coming and I don't have space for them, so we need to do an unhaul. So let's just go through all these books. I mean, you know what an unhaul is. I don't need to explain it. Let's just go. Okay, so first up is 2 books that I'm not getting rid of because I didn't enjoy. I actually love these books, but I just don't have room for hardbacks. And that's The Thursday Murder Club and The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. I have loved both of these books so much. I am actually, at the time of filming this, currently buddy reading the 3rd book. I love this series so much. It's a perfect cozy murder mystery in my opinion, but I don't have space. So I've been getting the paperbacks. I've actually been thrifting the paperbacks because I have already purchased these brand new and they are £20 each. So I've already spent quite a bit of money on them. But yeah, I don't have the room, and I actually do prefer reading paperbacks. They're easier, you can have them out and about with you. Hardbacks are heavier and I never take them outside the house. And I'm always worried that I'm going to damage the dust jacket or something. But these are books that I highly, highly recommend. I just want to get the paperbacks. And well, I actually already have this one. And I've ordered this one from World of Books, so that one's going to be arriving in the next week or so. I don't need to have 2 copies of these books as much as I would love to keep these hardbacks. I just don't have the space for them, and yeah, they're just, that's what it is. But as you can see, I'm sad about it because I love these books, but space. I mean, do you guys ever have this issue where you're just looking at your shelves and you're just like, I can't actually have the space for hardbacks? As beautiful as they look on the shelves, they're just not practical. So yeah, I mean, maybe eventually when I move out and I have a whole room dedicated to books, I can have all the hardbacks I want, but that is not now. Okay, so then we have a couple of Christina Henry books. So we have The Ghost Tree. I felt weird about this because I like Christina Henry as an author and I automatically buy whatever she puts out. However, I really didn't enjoy this book. I found it really long. A lot of her books are a lot shorter, and this one was so similar to The Horseman. This one did come out first, but I read The Horseman first, and I feel like this was almost like a practice run for The Horseman. It was so similar, the characters felt so similar, and the plot lines of things, while slightly different in this one, because this one we have girls that have been going missing every so many years, is it once a year? And people just seem to forget about it. The town completely forgets about this and they start realising that there's all sorts of darkness going on. And so it is a really good storyline, but it just felt so similar to The Horseman and it really did feel very long. So yeah, this is probably... I feel conflicted again because I do like Christina Henry and it's nice having all of her books, but at the same time, if I'm never going to reread it, why would I leave this on my shelves taking up space? Because space is something I am in severe need of. And that's exactly the same for Red Queen. This one is the 2nd book in her Alice... it was more of a duology, but she did do some short stories to go alongside it as well, where it was a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. I really like Alice, but I will say Red Queen, if you read them back to back, completely different tone to this book. Alice itself is a very dark book, very, very dark, and Red Queen tones it down a lot, but it does feel so different and it really feels very repetitive. With the progress that Alice made in Alice, it feels like she's gone straight back to the beginning again with not believing in herself, and it's okay, but I've read this one twice now and both times I didn't really enjoy it, so I think it's safe to say I'm never going to reread it a 3rd time, so it's going to go. Then we have Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I want to say enjoy, I say I liked this one. I liked it for the unusual format of this book. It was so interesting. It's set up like an IKEA catalogue. Absolutely love it. And it is a bit of like a ghost story, almost like a haunted house story, but a haunted IKEA instead. It's not called IKEA, it's obviously called something else, but it's basically IKEA. And you can very much envision IKEA when you're reading this book. And I love it for the formatting of it. And I did have fun with this when I read it, but I also know it's not going to be one I reread. Again, this is one that I feel I'm in an iron about, because I knew once I'd read this the first time I wasn't going to reread it, but I've kept it solely because of how it looks, because I've just never seen a book printed like this before. To have it in this formatting, to have it literally like an IKEA catalogue, like, it's so unique, and that's what's kept it on my shelves. But again, that's not really a good reason to keep it, so I'm going to unhaul it because I do think someone else will really enjoy this one, but it's hard because I really like the formatting of this book, and it was very creepy actually. I mean, I am a wuss, so take that with a pinch of salt, but it was very creepy, and I don't know, I enjoyed it. I think there were some scenes that were really like, oh, gross. I mean, my sister, who is a much bigger horror fan than I am, did not find this scary, and she found it just okay, so I guess it depends where you are, but I am a certified wuss. I found this one very creepy, and I loved the formatting of it, but yeah, it's not going to be one I reread. And one I'm definitely not going to reread is The Classic Tales of Horror by Edgar Allan Poe. I tried reading this when I was on holiday. I managed 3 stories and I gave up. I really just cannot gel with Edgar Allan Poe's writing at all. It's just not something I like. I'm not going to go into details of this. I had a bit of a rant during my holiday about this book, and I can't. This is the second book that I've tried reading of his, like, yes, short story collection. The other one was also a short story collection, but it's my second time trying, and I didn't like the first time when I actually unhauled that collection. I think Edgar Allan Poe is just not the author for me, as much as I wish he was, because he has had such an impact and influence on so many authors. I can't do it. So now we have a few graphic novels. So we have Lady McKenna Volume 1 and Monstrous Volume 1 and 2. Now, I have to admit, I did like all 3 of these, but I prefer manga to graphic novels. Didn't expect that, to be honest. I thought I'd prefer graphic novels because you've got all the beautiful colours with everything to go alongside the artwork, whereas manga is black and white. But actually I do. I prefer reading manga to graphic novels, and I never think about it when I'm in shops to carry on with these series. So I don't think I'm going to. I really can't remember too much on each of them. I know this one is more like Victorian steampunk themes, and this one is more like monsters and stuff, but again kind of similar with that steampunk-ish feel with the artwork. Yeah, graphic novels just aren't for me. I prefer manga, and even then I don't read it often. It's normally just as like a little break up for like if a day, if I'm wanting to read something but not wanting to commit to a brand new book, then I'll pick up manga. I have kept one, which is a really cutesy middle grade one, so I feel like maybe some like cuter ones, yes, but these ones are definitely like the darker ones, and as much as I love the artwork in them, the storylines themselves, like, they're good, but they just don't interest me enough to carry on with them. Does that make any sense? I don't know. Okay, then we have The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. I did really enjoy this book. It was so lovely and heartwarming. I loved our main character, and I did really connect with this book. However, I know I'm not going to reread it, and I really don't want to be keeping books on my shelves that I know I'm just not going to reread anymore. I would need the space for the books that, 1, are new, and 2, that I loved and I know I will reread. And unfortunately, as much as I did like this book, I'm not going to reread it. But I would recommend. I think it was really good. It's really uniquely put together as well. You have different formats, like you've got graphs and stuff in here, and it was just a really good insight into our main character, Christopher. And Christopher is such a lovely kid. Like, I really connected with him and would highly recommend. I just won't reread this. Okay, so then we have the Children of Blood and Bone first 2 books by Tomi Adeyemi. I did enjoy these ones. We're following our main character, and she has been subjugated consistently. Her family and that are always put down. I think it does a really good job of exploring things like racism and almost colonialism in a way, just through the themes that it's exploring. And I did like it. I liked our main characters, the things that they have to deal with, but it's been a little while, and I'm not sure if the 3rd book's out yet or if we're still waiting on it or something, but I just know that, again, I'm not going to reread these ones, and as good as they are and as much I would recommend them and the representation in them is really good, again, I know I'm not going to reread these. YA fantasy is something that I tend to read a lot less of, apart from select few, and yeah, I think we're just moving on from these. But I would recommend. They are good. if you're looking for something a little bit different, insight to a different culture, that's kind of it. Like, they were good, but I don't ever think about them. And again, when I'm shopping and stuff, it's not a book that I try and look out for to see if the third book is out or anything. Then we have 2 books that I picked up from a charity shop because I thought I would reread the first and carry on with the series, and that's not happened, so they're just going to go back to a charity shop. And that is The Way of Shadows and Beyond the Shadows. This is the first and third book, and it's a series, well, trilogy by Brent Weeks. I did read The Way of Shadows years ago when I was in college, and I remembered liking it but not enough to continue, but I thought maybe I should give it another try, especially because I saw it in a charity shop and they had the third one, so I was like, you know what, yeah, let's give this a try. Fast forward 2 years later, I've still not picked these up. I know we're following a kid who becomes an assassin, and it's quite brutal and dark, but that's about all I remember. I'm quite happy to give these ones back, especially because I have had them for a couple of years and I have not been inclined to pick them up at all. And as much as I did say I was going to read this 30 before I'm 30, it's never going to happen. There's no point hanging on to it until May to go, oh, I didn't read it, I guess I'll unhaul it. Another one I've been undecided on is 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I love this cover. Look how beautiful this is. It's absolutely stunning. However, am I going to continue on with it? I don't think so. The second book's been out for a little while now, and I've not really been inclined to pick it up. Like, even when I've seen it in shops, it's not been a book that I've gone, oh, I need to get that book. It's been very much it's nice, but that's it. It is a good story, and I do think if you're interested in a YA fantasy that's light, heartfelt, and has a very fairy tale-esque feel to it, yeah, go for it. Otherwise, no. And that's the thing, like, I do, again, it's like the other books, like, I like it, it's good, I enjoyed it at the time, but I'm never going to reread this one, and I don't feel inclined to carry on with it. And as much as it is only a duology, so it wouldn't take much time to finish the second book, for this sort of thing, I actually prefer Stephanie Garber's Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which I've got at the top. I actually prefer that to this, and that ticks the box of the light, fluffy, feels like a fairy tale sweetness. So I'd rather reread that than this one. And I think that's because I have the connection from her previous books with the Carvel trilogy and really enjoying that. Whereas this one, as much as I have read Spin the Dawn, and I do like that book and I've still kept that one for now, I know that I prefer Once Upon a Broken Heart to this, and I don't want to carry on anymore, I guess. This is a really long-winded way of saying that. Okay, on to the second stack. We do have a manga, and that's Ajin, the Demihuman, and this one is like a horror manga. I did read the first volume. I liked it, but I'm not really interested enough to carry on with it like the other mangas that I've got, and so I'm not going to with this one. It is very dark and twisted, so if you like that sort of manga, I do recommend. Yeah, for now, I'm going to give this one away. Then we have a trilogy, which is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. The only one I really liked was the 5th season. This was my favourite one. I thought it was so well done, it's so unique. And this is kind of a blend of different genres. So you have fantasy, sci-fi and dystopian elements all kind of blended into one. And they are fantastic books. However, the second and third one got really heavy on the science part, and it was focusing on areas which I didn't find as intriguing that I did in the first book. The first book was really good, and I have to admit I kind of carried on with this one because it was getting really hyped up on BookTube. So many people were saying it was so good. It has won awards for every single book. It is fantastic, but is it my sort of thing? No, not really. Again, I really appreciated the first book. I thought that was really interesting, and this is a good series if you are looking for that genre crossover, and we are set in a world where there is a 5th season, which it happens every so often. When it does, it rips apart the world, and so you're living in a society where people are so used to this happening. They have really strict rules, regulations about what you do, what your role is in society, everything that you're having to then deal with. But I know that, again, for me, this isn't a trilogy I will reread. I feel like I haven't done a very good job of explaining what these books are actually about, but this is the unhaul, and it's more about why I'm getting rid of them. And that goes for Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is a good fantasy trilogy, and I liked it. I thought it was really unusual. We're in a world where basically there are like assassin nuns, and I liked it. This is the only book series of his that I actually got on with. I've tried a couple of his other books but never quite got there. However, As much as I've reread Red Sister a couple of times, I know that the series as a whole I'm never going to reread again. And it is good. I would recommend actually reading this in like winter time because it's got a really cold wintry setting, which I think does really well. Again, I'm just not going to reread these, so I've had them on my shelves for years. Red Sister for years. And yeah, it's just time. It's time to move on. A couple of books I've read more recently. We have Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuku Tsujimori, and this one I was just disappointed by. I go into this a lot more depth with my 3-month review, so I'm not going to here. But again, it's just not one that I'm going to pick up or reread, and I think someone else will enjoy this one a lot more than I did. Same as Witch Child by Celia Rees. This is one that I actually DNF. If I've DNF'd a book and I know I'm not ever going to try again, then there's no point hanging on to it. As beautiful as it is, as promising as it sounded, because we are following a witch, and it was going to be really interesting to see it back in, because this one's written in the 1600s, and it sounded so promising, but unfortunately it just didn't quite hit it on the mark, and I ended up getting really bored very early on in this. And another one I talked about in my 3-month review that I also DNF'd is Chillin Effect by Valerie Valdez. We have lots of reasons as to why I didn't like this book, but to sum it up, farts. I don't want to read a book about farts, and that's all I have to say. Then we have Memos of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I did read this one, and I read this one a little while ago now. I liked it. I do think it was well written. I liked the historical nature of this. However, I have since read the non-fiction book that's actually about the person that this book was based upon, and you can really see the liberties Arthur Golden took with her storyline, how he really changed what a geisha actually is and sexualized it for Western consumption. As much as it has got beautiful writing in it, I don't agree with that, and I know I'm not going to reread this one, so that can be going as well. Last few. Another book I've read recently is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. I actually did like this one, but I also know, again, it's not going to be one that I'm going to reread. This one was a really interesting look into Korean society, the beauty standards, and we've seen it from 4 different girls' perspectives. I do think it was interesting. It was really good to get that look into Korean society and the beauty culture. But again, I'm not going to reread this one. Sally Rooney's Conversation with Friends I spoke about in my 3-month review. This one is one that I'm upset about because I did like Normal People and I've kept that book. But Conversation with Friends was just a bit disappointing for me. It just fell flat. I think it would have been better if we had 2 different perspectives. This is one of those books that people recommend to read when you're in your 20s. If you're following a girl who is in her 20s, who feels very lost, gets herself into messy situations. And I do think it does a good reflection of that, but it just didn't hit with me. And I think Sally Rooney books, your favourites and then you have your least favourite, and this is definitely my least favourite so far. I still need to read Beautiful World, Where Are You? So far, Normal People absolutely winning it for me, and Conversation with Friends, like, it wasn't bad, but it was definitely disappointing, and I know I won't reread it. Then we have Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I've kept this one since I've read this. I didn't enjoy reading it, but I thought, oh, maybe I'll reread it at a later date and prefer it. You know what, life's too short to do that. I'm not going to reread books that I didn't enjoy, and that's where I stand. I know this one is so good. So many people really do love it. It is great classic. It's influenced loads of things. It questions moralities. Do I want to reread this though? No. So we're gonna go. And the same goes for Tale of Genji by Lady Murasaki Shikubi. This was one that I read for a 24-hour readathon. It is good. It's translated from Japanese. It's also claimed as the authentic first translation of the world's earliest novel. That's what really piqued my interest, is I wanted to read the world's earliest novel. Problem is, I don't actually like the world's earliest novel. We're basically just following a main character who is a womanizer, pretty much, in love with love. It was okay. It was okay. But will I ever reread it? No. And that's the thing, none of these books I can say were really bad. Well, okay, apart from the 2 that I DNF'd and Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, 3 books out of this lot. The rest of them I do think were good, and I think if you like certain elements of the books, then go for it, read them, try them. But for me, a lot of these are just books I will not reread, or I've decided not to continue on with the series, and I need the space. And so it was actually a lot harder this time. I've done unhauls in the past where it was really easy because I didn't enjoy the books and stuff, but actually if I based it on solely not enjoying the books, this would be tiny and it would probably only be like 5 books, because the rest of them I still enjoyed. There was always something good about each book, but I just won't reread these ones. And as I said, I just don't have the shelf space to be keeping books that I won't reread. Yeah, this was hard. This was actually a lot harder than previous ones, as I've mentioned. Like, it was hard, because some of these books were really good and really lovely, and I have been thinking about this for a little while for some of these. Some of them I've kept on my shelves for years, but it's time. We're gonna have to just do it. It's like ripping off a plaster. You've just got to do it in one go. And that's what we're doing. Let me know if you've read any of these. Are any of these some books that you really like or you would like to read, or have you read them and not enjoyed them? Do you unhaul books? Do you DNF books? Like, where are we standing on this? That's the video. I feel like this one was definitely a lot more messy. There wasn't much explanation of books, and so I do apologise for that. If there's any of these books that you're interested in and you'd like to know a little bit more about, then let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to respond to you. It's not a problem. For me, I'm just focused on I need to have space, and that's literally all I'm focusing on with these books. So I didn't want to think too much about what all these books are, because it would just convince me to keep them on my shelves for even longer, knowing that they will not get picked up again. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, then let's put a sponge or some sort of cleaning emoji, because again, we are cleaning off my shelves. And thank you for sticking with this very messy, chaotic video, it feels like. And if you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it that thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, comment to let me know that you're here. Social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next one.